The history of the right to counsel has a long history, but fortunately, it's not as long as some of us might think. The story of you have the right to an attorney begins in 1931 with Powell v. Alabama, the case of the Scottsboro Boys, a group of young black men who were accused of raping two white women and who were put through a kangaroo court by an all-white jury. The court found that they were not given proper counsel, proper time to prepare, and this was the case that truly enshrined the right to counsel. It was later compounded by the 1938 case Johnson v. Zerps, which expanded this to all federal trials. And finally, the famous case of Gideon v. Wainwright in 1963, which stipulated that every case where someone's liberty was in danger required counsel. For my part, I chose to focus on public defenders because I have a personal connection to it. My father has worked as a member of the Assigned Counsel, which is one of the three organizations in New York City which takes on the cases of the indigent defendants who cannot pay for their own legal defense. One of the key issues facing this system is resources. Attorneys which take on these cases often have a cap, a maximum amount that they can receive from the court for their services. And oftentimes, especially for assigned counsel plan members, those resources are at the beck and call of the court and the judge rather than an outside entity. In 2019, New York City spent about $210 million total for their public defender budgets. Compare that to the $351 million given to the 5 district attorneys' offices in New York City. And that's not even counting the $6 billion that the NYPD had at their disposal that same year. When I spoke to attorneys in the Bronx after returning home, they spoke about the law and order effect, how people view them as on the side of criminals, and how their own clients saw them as agents of the court and not to be trusted. I saw that there was a lack of media presence for public defenders and their clients, and a lack of focus on what services they could provide. But these attorneys care about justice. They care about protecting people who don't have the ability to comport their own legal defense. These are people who are not interested in becoming big corporate lawyers. They are interested in doing the work that lawyers were originally meant to do. I wanted to make sure that I could get this information across. Originally, I wanted to put together a series of workshops, know your rights activities that would not only educate the public, but create media space for this underheard community. But a higher power works in mysterious ways. So instead, I scaled it back to something I know well, writing stories. That's what led me to Public Defense Informer. I wrote a series of articles based on in-person meetings I had with attorneys working in the Bronx on the assigned counsel plan that ultimately became the flagship stories for PDI. Working off of this, I created a Facebook account for PDI to be able to share these stories directly with the public and try to see what kind of reaction I could get. Unfortunately, I delayed very much getting this ready. I let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But so far, I have a modicum amount of engagement to work with and a small audience that could be more receptive to news about public defense. I also tried reaching out on Twitter and Reddit, asking if anyone had curious questions about the public defense system and what questions they'd like answered. These did not always turn out the way I wished, but it's sometimes requires learning what can go wrong before you can find out what's right. Going forward, I want to build out the social media presence of PDI. We already have 3 good articles set up, and we have a number of people who are interested in our work, both legal and general public. There will be continuing issues facing people who must appear in court, especially as we go into the post-corona era. And I want to be there to document their struggles and show how the system is working. What I learned from gathering information about this project, speaking to attorneys and legal experts, is that there is no Gideon without Powell. Without a community coming together to protect the accused, there is no way that Gideon, a poor white man, could pick up a pen and ask the Supreme Court to defend his freedom without that community coming together to protect those young Black men. And if you have any further questions about the right to counsel or about PDI, feel free to contact me.